Добродојдовте, драги гледачи, во новата сезона на подкастот Чекор напред со М6. Како што гледате, оваа сезона ја почнуваме во ново студио и верувам дека ќе биде инспиративно и за мене и за гостите кои ќе бидат оваа сезона наши говорници во емисијата. Оваа сезона повеќе ќе се осврнеме не само на професионалниот развој и развојот на компаниите, туку ќе зборуваме на теми кои се од важност за личниот развој на нас како индивидуалци. Со таа цел денеска за гостин имам еден извореден соговорник, една изворена личност со како би рекол богато животно и професионално искуство. Чест ми е да најавам денеска со нас Александра Панаyotou, нашиот гостин кој доаѓа од Атина, два пати TEDx говорник, атлетичар кој истрчал 400 километри без престан, има истрчано повеќе километри отколку дел од нас што имаме извозено со нашите автомобили. Навистина една изворена личност, еден изворен соговорник кој работи како консултант за неколку меѓународни компании на ниво на менаџери, но и на middle management. Работи исто со индивидуалци за личен развој и е мотивацијски говорник ширум светот. И посакам добродојде на Alexandra Panayotou. Hi, Alexandra.
Hi.
Thank you for being us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are really delighted that we have you today as our guest and speaker. You just came from the conference that M6 organized, M6 Education Center organized, and the conference is called Alchemy of Happiness. And it's related with individual happiness, but individual happiness is also related with how happy the companies are, the businesses, how productive they are, how at the end customers are happy with the companies. So if the conference title is Alchemy of Happiness, do you agree that happiness is alchemy, or it is based on chemical processes and on sciences? Because alchemy associates us on something above the science.
So, first of all, I love the title, Alchemy of Happiness. I love the title because actually happiness is most certainly not above science. However, where it brings us makes us feel that it's above science. And also the fact that for so many people, they don't choose happiness and they don't realize that they can choose it. So they do think that there's a bit of alchemy about it. But how happiness is a state of how we feel, and how we feel is all chemical, actually. And it's a chemical process that doesn't just happen or not happen, because otherwise everybody who had a great job, who had a nice family, who had their health, who was living in a decent place would feel happy. And that's not the case, is it?
It's not the case. And actually, in your lectures, you mentioned that one precondition to be happy actually is to set your mindset to be happy. And you have several important points that you mentioned that are very important or influence on how happy we are going to feel. Can you tell us about this?
So there's lots of elements, but for me, I'd say the six key elements is, the first one is to have a grounded positive attitude. And I don't just say a positive attitude because it's not a given. It's not just about being happy all the time and laughing all the time and feeling everything is right, because that's not realistic. It's about having a realistic positive attitude. That's the first key element. The second key element is what you mentioned before, is the mindset shift, the change in our mindset, because mindset isn't just a condition that we have, it's a decision about the direction that I choose to set my mind in. And that is a conscious choice. So the mindset shift, and then ideally for me, I believe we have to have an endurance mindset, because it's not just about achieving short goals. It's about to be able to have sustainable, our success or our well-being or our happiness needs to be sustainable regardless of the storms that are happening around us and the things that happen to us. That's the second one. The third one is to have a purpose. And I use the word very strategically. I don't say goals, objectives. A purpose is basically, or an aspiration, is to have a goal that is meaningful for me. Doesn't matter if it's not meaningful for the rest of people, because in our jobs we have goals. We all have goals and objectives, but it has to be important for each one of for ourselves. We have to have our own goals, so they have to. And this is a chemical. This actually is chemical, because when something is important for you, there's a part of your brain, which is the limbic part of your brain, it lights up like bulbs. And if it's not important for you, but it's important for me, it won't light up. You will be less happy. So that's the third part. The fourth key one is meaningful connection with other people. So these can be either people we love, or people that we care about, people that we have fun with, or people who even challenge us mentally or emotionally, but meaningful connection, not just social
Small
connection.
talks.
Yeah. The fifth is to have a realistic balance. And again, just like the positive attitude, realistic, because we are all professionals. We are ambitious. We want to achieve things. It has to be a realistic balance, and it has to work for each one of us. And then the sixth one, which if we do all of these, we will have the sixth, let's say, pillar, which is resilience. And we will be able to develop this resilience, which is the flexibility that we need to be able to bend with the storms and the obstacles that hit us in our lives and careers, of course.
You mentioned two important, according to me, let's say, elements of being happy. One is realistic balance, and then building resilience. And actually what you are doing with the companies and the top management of the companies is trying to prevent burnout of the managers and even employees. And practically by doing that, you are trying to create and build their resilience. Can you tell us more about, because you're expert in preventing burnout, or for those that are already burned out, you try to recover them. Can you tell us from your experience, what are the reasons? Probably not realistic balance is one of that. What are the reasons and how people can prevent, how employees can prevent from burning out? How can we recognize when we are approaching to the burnout? What are the signals or symptoms?
So this is really, you've hit one of the most fundamental issues for our professional lives, because burnout actually is the corporate epidemic of not just our times now, but we've known about it for over 50 years. So burnout, what is it? A definition, let's say, just a simple definition. It's a physical and or mental collapse caused by overwork and or stress. A misconception is that it's our company's fault, that if I burn out, it's the company's fault. And so the solutions have to be, it's the company's responsibility. 90% of the responsibility, whether I prevent burnout or not, it's in me. And this is like so many parts of our development.
Yes. Depends on us, our decisions.
Exactly. So yes, we can. Most people don't realize that they're on a path to burnout before it's too late. And this is why it's such a tragedy, and this is why there's such a problem, because burnout for companies means people getting sick more often, so absenteeism, being outside the work, major financial loss, presenteeism, which is when people are in the workplace, but they're not happy and they're not engaged and they're not well. So there's there's financial losses from that. There's problems with communication, clashes with clients. There's a lot of issues. but there are signs and symptoms, just like with anything else, there are signs and symptoms that will lead up to it. Now, the problem, why is it so difficult to diagnose, let's say? Because any of the signs and symptoms can be signs and symptoms of other things as well. So, for example, I'll just give you, let's say, a few. One is when you used to be a motivated person, finding yourself at some stage stopping having meaning, feeling the meaning for the things that you're doing every day, either at work or outside of work. So having less meaning in your life. Cognitive, mental problems, for example, loss of focus, starting to procrastinate, not being able to finish things, delaying with things, issues with decision making, losing your temper more often, so your patience dropping, getting sick more often, so having colds and flus 2, 3, 4 times a year is not normal, it's not usual. Issues with substance abuse, overeating, overdrinking, relying on substances instead of relying for yourself. There's an awful lot so there's about 20 or 30, some of which are physical, some of which are emotional, and some of which are behavioral as well. So isolating yourself, not wanting to become so social. All of these are signs and symptoms. And all of these, alongside all of these, is a declining performance at work. So you might be achieving your goals at work, but your performance is dropping. So, and it happens to people right from the top all the way through companies.
We mentioned also building resilience, which is very important. And in this today world of changes, because changes are much more often than in past today,
Yes.
we have to get used to changes and to adapt to changes. Changes means, on the other hand, going out of our comfort zones, and people do not want to go out of their comfort zones. We always have resistance to that. So how we can be happy if we are not willing to go out of our comfort zones? Can we be happy without adopting to the dynamic changes that every day happens?
Well, the word comfort zone is one of the worst. It's a misnomer. It's a very badly named word because comfort zone doesn't really feel very comfortable. So we can't really feel happy when we're in our comfort zone.
So why people don't want to go out of their comfort zone? Because of fears of they want to keep status quo even if it's not the best situation for them. But the fears are stronger than the need for change.
Fears, doubts, and insecurities holds us back from stepping out of where we feel comfortable, where it feels safe. However, it's not very gratifying being in that place, especially when we're doing it because of fears and just feeling comfortable and just feeling safe. Now, when we continue in that path, we don't get very exciting results at the end of it. So we all have things that we want to do and we should do. And the only way to do them is by challenging ourselves and stepping out, because there's something that happens to us when we are in a comfort zone and when we keep doing the same things. We start to stagnate, whoever we are, because we were made to be dynamic. And when we stick in the same place, we're not being dynamic. So even mentally, physically, emotionally, we start to stagnate. And when we start to stagnate, we start to sink. And going back to the whole burnout idea, this can also lead us towards burnout as well, when we start stagnating. So it's all interrelated.
So it seems that Darwin was right, that not the strongest and the cleverest survive, but those that are most flexible and adaptable to changes.
Yes, I'm a firm believer of that, because when we're flexible, we don't have to be the strongest, we don't have to have the most things, but when we have flexibility, because life, there's only one certain thing, other than that one day we're going to die, is that we're going to have obstacles. And how we react to those obstacles, if we crumble with them, if we just stop, if we waste time with them, but whereas when we're flexible and when our mindset, when our attitude and emotionally we're flexible, something happens, we stop, we gain clarity, we pivot, we change, we do what we need to. And when we're fully flexible, we actually do it happily as well, even though none of us like obstacles.
You did some researches in the past and about what are the most frequently found fears or fears among people. And can you share more about that? What are the fears that most of the people share and stop them to grow out, get out of their comfort zone and grow?
So under normal times, and I'm not talking about when there's a pandemic or when there's a war going on, the greatest common fears globally, regardless of your position, regardless of country, regardless of gender, anything, the top fear, and particularly among professionals, the top fear is fear of failure. By far, even people you would never imagine.
Is it more Western, let's say, value or it's common for all the world, Eastern, Western part?
I've done this workshop. I've done this workshop in the US. I've done this workshop all over Europe. I've done it in Asia, different ages. Fear of failure in the professional world, particularly, fear of failure is the biggest fear. We would have all thought death. It's not. It's fear of failure. Second one, other people's opinion. What people think about us. And this is, we wouldn't think about it because we're usually talking about quite successful people, worrying about being approved, being recognized, being seen. What will people think of me? Will people find what I have to say viable? This is the second fear. And then you have existential fears, loneliness, death, loss of a loved one. But those two fears are the biggest common fears.
Actually, the two first fears that you mentioned are in contradiction with entrepreneurship if you go on other side, because usually entrepreneurs do not afraid to fail once, 2, 3 times. They don't care too much about so maybe what you're saying that these fears are growing actually influence that the level of innovation and entrepreneurs in these years is not as much as the same level 10, 20, 50 years ago. Especially in the Western countries, these fears were not so significant. On Eastern part, we always take care what our neighbors will say. We don't want to show up that we fail and start again. So what you are saying actually indicates a global trend that will lead maybe to reduce entrepreneur businesses, startups, and people working for bigger companies than small startups.
Well,
have you found this in your, let's say, professional experience with companies? Do you have small companies that you are using your experience and knowledge, or you just work for internationals?
No. I work with different levels of different sizes, let's say, global and smaller companies. The more innovative a company and the more entrepreneurial a company,
are happy.
The less, now, not everybody in an entrepreneurial company are the entrepreneurs. So the more fixed we are professionally, the more those kinds of fears come in. And what does this say to me? And I know this from myself, when we challenge ourselves in our lives, but we challenge ourselves and we embrace challenge, we start losing fears. We get less and less. I used to be somebody riddled with fears. Now, I have very, very few fears. Even some big ones. Why? Because the more we embrace challenge, change, opportunity, the stronger we get. and the less, and our fears drop down, and fear is natural, but unnatural fear is not natural. So yes, you're very right. So the more steady and fixed a company is, the more these fears are. And also in the societies we live in, we're being fed. These fears are being fed.
Yes.
So we're taught, and we love and social media and the way we can live now and what we can achieve through social media and the networks that we have is incredible. But what it does do if we're not strong in ourselves is it feeds our insecurities. And we have to be very strong in ourselves not to compare ourselves to all those other shiny people out there.
Yeah, because social media, now, as you mentioned, actually give us opportunity and put pressure on people that they must be like this, let's say, shining stars at the moment, and that is suppressing the willingness to go out of the comfort zone, afraid of being unsuccessful or what the others will say, and all other fears. So how we can overcome these fears, let's say in companies, because according to me, and not only according to me, the companies, if they want to have happy customers as a precondition for market growth and success, first of all, they have to have happy employees.
Exactly.
So how to keep happy employees, not to create a corporate culture that will cherish happiness in the company, because if you have satisfied employees, there will be not high turning rate of people going out, newcomers come. So how to manage to be happy environment, working place?
Okay, now there's two sort of elements there. One is the how to avoid the fears so as to achieve this. And then the other one is the engagement side of it, which are two very strong. The engagement side is tied very much closely with the burnout prevention. So engagement is we need a realistic balance in the workplace. We need communication. We need for our employees to be able to rest when they need to rest. They need to be motivated and happy at work. So communications have to be good. There's a lot of things that play in here. And fears have to be reduced. So if you have the type of company where there's threats, there's humiliation, there's no space for balance, and there's very little encouragement, this leads to unhappy people and fearful people.
Even if the salary is much above the average, the salary is not the single element for motivation.
We absolutely know, and this isn't just my opinion, we know that salary is not the biggest motivation. For some people it might be.
But not for long period.
Or not for...
Even for those.
If you knew how many companies I worked with senior executives with massive salaries, where they've said, we don't want more salary. We want to be happy to come in here on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning. It's how we live our lives and how we feel is more important. Once we have the basic needs met and a little bit more, then we do need happiness and well-being. These are not just nice to haves, because we spend so much time at work. It's absolutely vital. And how do we let go of the fears? Because you asked as well, how do we reduce the fears, or how do we let go of the fears? By challenging ourselves more. And how do we do this in a company? How do we do it in ourselves? We have to ask ourselves a question, because what do we usually do? We're afraid about something. Should I speak up? But what if my boss, what if it's not the right thing?
Look at me badly.
Yeah.
At the meeting.
So the question is, we always think worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that can happen? We can ask that. What we don't ask, and it's usually not so bad anyway, what we never ask ourselves is, so we ask, what's the cost of action? If I say it, what will happen to me? We never ask ourselves, what happens if I don't say it? What's the cost of inaction? And this question, and this is one of the most fundamentally important questions we can ask ourselves at work and outside of work, is the things that I want to do or should do, speaking up, suggesting, acting out, accepting a challenge, taking an initiative. We usually don't do these things because we're afraid. But we have to be thinking, if I don't step out today, speak up, step out, take an initiative, be proactive, what is my job going to look like tomorrow if I keep not speaking up, if I don't step out? What is my career going to look like 5 years down the road? What am I going to feel about myself? How will my happiness be, my health, and my career? We don't ask ourselves these questions, and we should, because if we look at these and we gain some clarities, then we'll stop holding back.
Yeah, and when we return again to these 6 pillars for happiness that you mentioned, actually we have to be able to go out of our comfort zones and grow. And we as individuals and professionals, we have to choose companies where we can grow not just professionally and in salaries, but where we can grow as individuals. And if we build such a corporate culture in the companies, probably this will be our competitive advantage, not just like that being happy, but competitive advantage against our competitors. So at the end of the day, we should ask the same question like in Casablanca film. Do you feel lucky? When you get the check with the salary, again, maybe we should ask the question, do we feel lucky even with the salary like it is? So we have to find a purpose, as you mentioned, and probably purpose is something that if we don't have a purpose on a even medium term, not a long term, we are going to be unsatisfied and unhappy. So my let's say question to you is not question. My request for opinion from you is how people, employees, normal employees, middle-aged or workers, has to still be happy at work. Or have you ever examined the level of happiness of employees related with the success of the company? I mean, with their market share growing, is there a correlation between happiness of employees and success of the company on the market compared with other competitors?
Very interesting. Very interesting question. There might be to some extent, but much less than you would imagine, because the relationship is happiness is to culture of the company. And I'm not talking about ticking some boxes culture. No. It's not that. The happiness levels are the culture of a company. Now, if a company is failing, of course, again, it's like saying about the salary. You need your salary covered. So a company that is doing okay but has a fabulous culture, the people will be happier than a company that is growing exponentially and a massive success but has a toxic culture. The turnover will be massive, but people won't want to stay there. The culture of a company is not a nice to have. It's a no-brainer. When people are happy, they won't just do their jobs. They will go the extra mile. Yes. When crisis hits, they will go above and beyond. They will stay there all weekend
and support
because they want to. A manager who doesn't develop the right culture, a positive culture in a company, will manage their people. They will not lead their people because people will not be following. People only follow leaders, and that only happens when there's a positive culture. And culture, by the way, all of this is simple to build.
Yes, it looks simple to build.
It's simple. Simple doesn't mean easy always.
Yeah, it's not
simple.
Easy.
The steps are simple and are cost effective, and people don't realize this.
So for the end of this podcast, I would ask you what would you suggest to the top managers how to create this culture among the employees, and how to create competitive edge over the others through the people that work. Because today, the technology is so available, even not expensive like in the past. So two companies might have the same technology, the same customers, the same suppliers, but what makes one company different from another is actually the team, the employees that work for the company. So how to create a company that will be exceptional from the competitors?
So another great question. So first of all, they need to start creating a company where people want to work. So when people want to work, the top talents want to go there. When people want to work there, they don't leave as well, and they go the extra mile, and they become top performers. So, and how do they do that? They don't just hire the most skilled people. What has to happen is right from the top down, it doesn't start by the hirings, it starts from who is leading, how they are leading. And so becoming an example yourself is the best way to start. You need to gain clarity about what's working in your company and what's not working on the human level. You need to start gaining clarity about how happy and engaged the people are. If there are massive problems with communication going on, people are not very happy and engaged. And it doesn't happen just by doing some communication workshops. It starts from the top, development programs, finding the values, finding the culture that's right for this particular company, and then building that in, and then trickling this down through the company.
And implement and live the same values that is written.
Yeah.
And informal communication.
Or change the values.
Or change the values
so that they become values that your top team and you and your top team want to be aligned with, because alignment of interest is vital. You can't have the type of company that you're talking about if there isn't alignment of interest, but from the top. You can't say, be engaged. You have to be engaged, you have to live the values, and then this trickles down, and then this becomes that kind of company.
So managers have to be a role model that they expect to see in others. If you just pick something and you do not act according to that, you cannot even expect that others will follow your the values and the way of behavior that you just preach over them.
Exactly. When I work in a company, if I go into a company, I won't accept to just do a program for middle management or for the general company. I will start at the top and then go down. And it's more important to take that top tier. If there isn't the budget, let's say, for more than the top tier, then it's better not to do more. It's better just to do that, because that will trickle down. Whereas if you try and trickle up, it blocks.
Usually it goes top down, not bottom up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially for this.
Otherwise,
for these
the whole
issues.
thing turns at bottom up, and the company stops anyway.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for being today with us, for your, I would say, extraordinary lectures that you had on the conference, for our great conversation. I hope even our spectators, they enjoy this conversation, and they find something useful for their private lives, but also for professional lives. Thank you very much.
It's been a huge pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Драги гледачи, това беше разговорът со нашата драга гостинка Александра Панайото, која е искусен предавач, веќе долги години, спортист, која ги покажала своите атлетски способности, професионални, и го поврзала спортот со професионалната кариера и со индивидуалниот развој. Се надевам дека најдовте сите по нешто од овие разговори што ќе ви биде корисно како во професионалните кариери, така и индивидуално. Останете со нас во Чекор напред со ем6, ќе има уште нови интересни подкасти со интересни гости. Ви благодарам.